and welcome to an episode of the behind the scenes look of Disrupted Work Reimagined, the Unconference that's happening on October 16th this year. I'm Tammy Alvarez, the founder of the Career Winners Circle and co host of this epic event that we are putting together. And I am beyond excited to be with Lori Crever today and talk about some of the behind the scenes things that she's going to be bringing to the event in just a few weeks. Lori, welcome, and it's great to see you again.
Great to see you, Tammy. Can't wait to see you in person in the
I
fall
I know, right? So Lori is
again.
a co-conspirator, a friend, a colleague, a mentor, and all the things. And I'm really excited to share some of her thought leadership with you guys today. But Lori, before we get into our conversation, I do want to brag on you just a little bit for those who may not be familiar with all of your awesomeness. And so Lori Crever is, by all accounts, a Renaissance woman when it comes to professions. Her career spans from Broadway to the boardroom and everything in between. So she's a comedy improviser, an international speaker and author, and a former vice president in global banking, which is where our soul sister starts to connect.
Mhm.
And she's led massive initiatives on mentorship and human rights and global philanthropy. And this unique background gives her such a clever perspective on how to rethink how to activate our teams. And I think a lot of us struggle with really trying to get to the point where we resonate and connect with our team members. And we'll get into this in just a little bit, but computers don't run everything yet. So we still need that human connection, that activation, and mentorship is a very important way to think about doing that. Lori is going to be leading one of our sessions in the talent and culture pillar. And the session's called Built on Culture, Powered by Talent. And here's what it helps you do. It helps you turn your employees into co-architects of growth because now you're building an organization that actually cares about the results as much as you do. And this isn't a rallying cry for engagement. What this is a switched on and all in shift in how the DNA of the organization functions. And at this event, we've all heard about mentorship and we've all heard and had various experiences on its success. And this is all supposed to be new because I think we know deep down that work doesn't work anymore and that yesterday's playbooks, for some reason, are falling short. But we struggle with trying to figure out what will work. And while mentorship seems like a leadership or an organization 101, there's a new spin to this that Lori's going to be bringing to the table that I cannot wait to share with you. So Lori, thank you so much for your time. And what I want to start with is share with us from your perspectives, what is the big challenge or opportunity that leaders can no longer afford to ignore right now, particularly as it pertains to mentorship and what that looks like in our next generation of mentorship?
Mhm. Well, the challenge that I'm hearing about has to do with maintaining our human experience in the workplace, which is so powerful and what creates engagement and that stickiness, that desire to be there and be fully in gear when you're at work. Maintaining this in the face of the exponential automation that AI represents. And within this, many staff are telling me they fully recognize, they started talking to me about this last year, they fully recognize the likely need for them to completely retrofit themselves for a different job
Yeah.
than maybe what they've been doing for the last decade plus. And that's scary for people.
It's scary for organizations too, right?
Yeah.
So I think the entire ecosystem is in a sense of disruption that that we can't ignore anymore because whether we like it or not, it is coming and is here. And so, what's the one thing that you see leaders maybe not leaning into as much as they should when it relates to tapping into and activating that human element?
What I'm seeing, and some leaders are getting good at this, and there's been a lot of conversation building over the last decade, is how do we really understand neuroscience? How do we understand brain function and different brain states when it comes to the work environment? Many of us have heard this term about hijacking your amygdala, which is part of that fight, flight, or freeze response. If we are doing things unwittingly as leaders that are hurling our staff into fight, flight, or freeze, then clearly we're not setting them up to tap into their highest best self and all of that thinking power that they have to problem solve. So this is something when we do our Disrupted conference in New York in October, I'm going to be bringing in layperson's terms, little more comprehension on how we can apply good brain science to bringing more of that human element, strengthening that in the workplace.
And so give me a use case of how this shows up in action. Because I'm seeing it and hearing it all the time.
Mhm.
And whenever I start to hear about the brain sciencey things, I'm like, what does that really mean? And so I'm sure you see these examples all day, every day. So walk me through when a leader or an organization is unintentionally, but putting these individuals into that what is it, fight, flight, or freeze. Easy for me to say on. But yeah, how does that happen? Give me an idea of what we can or what we are doing that's creating that.
I can say in one word, merger. That whole category of work activity throws people sort of as well it should because there's so much job elimination that happens
Yeah.
generally once a merger actually is consummated. So that would be an instance where positive, clear, transparent communication from leaders is important. And then one of my subject areas is mentorship and really creating some pairings that foster a lot of guidance around how do we get through this? How do we get through this together? Anything that leaders can do to create safety and security for real is going to calm down those lower brain functions and keep people in prefrontal cortex mode of being able to tap into their executive functions. And on that item around mentorship, think yourself when you have been asked, however formal or informal, to mentor someone, to give them your industry knowledge, your guidance. That's an executive function. That is you tapping into a very high brain state of what have I gained? How can I show up as a resource for this person? So if you have more and more people doing that in the organization, just as like real value of
Mm.
an agreed upon value, then we're elevating everyone into those better brain states, and the outcomes are going to be more successful, more prosperous. This is very important, more cohesion, more desire and willingness to trade information and work together. Because Tammy, I know one of your mottos is collaboration is is the new competition.
That's right.
And that's what I see a lot in organizations, but certainly if you're in the throes of a merger, is it turns on, it sort of ignites this human response of competitiveness, kill or be killed, eat or be eaten, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost like a culture of mentorship is an antidote to that,
Hmm.
helps to ward that off. And that is positive.
Oh, for sure. And I think in many cultures, right, it is a zero-sum game. And in order for me to win, you have to lose.
Yeah.
And the organizations and the leaders that are finding a way out of that
Yeah.
and a better way forward are the ones who are retaining the best talent, which,
Yeah.
despite how many layoffs we have, seems to still be a major problem for everyone out there. You,
Yeah.
you also have this really interesting perspective on belonging.
Mm.
And you know me, back in my Wall Street days, I was never the airy fairy one, right? And I always needed to have people around me who were really good at that because I would jump into meetings without saying good morning and all those things that that you do when you're busy and you're focused on business results. And I think one of the most important things that leaders need to remember today is I think we've all heard that saying, what got you here won't get you where you want to go.
Yeah.
And I think with the level of disruption and polycrisis that businesses, economies, leaders, and individuals are facing,
Mhm.
it's even worse than that.
Mhm.
Because now what got you here is actually going to hurt you moving forward.
Mhm.
So using the things that always worked are actually going to work against you. And so you bring up this beautiful perspective, both just from what I think is, ultimately common sense, but also brain science about belonging. So talk about that a little bit, because I know we're going to dig into that in one of the hackathons.
Yeah, it's so interesting. There are studies involving brain scans that show if we are thrown into a scenario where we feel we are being ostracized, discarded or pushed aside, it registers in the same area of the brain that registers pain. That's really powerful. But then it opens the door to something really simple, which is how can we adopt practices within our organizations that create belonging, that create that sense of safety and security? When we have that, it just calms everything down. And then we're more likely to bring our best selves to work. Let's be real, Tammy. Probably nobody wants anyone to bring their whole self to work. I mean, I had a
Fair enough.
roommate when I
Yes.
lived in New York City that saved his toenail clippings.
Oof.
No judgment, but
I'm lying. No, I'm judging.
what we want in the workplace is to create the conditions that individuals are bringing their highest and best self, because that's not only great for the organization, it's great for the person. It's great for your morale. Wow, you get to the end of your work week. If you've been bringing your best self, feels great. And you're doing that for sure from a space of belonging. We want people to do it from a space of belonging and security, not from a space of fear.
Mhm.
And am I about to get the axe? And is my job safe, right? If their job isn't safe, could you implement a retain and retrain program so that you take this talent that's there and loyal and give them the retraining that they need to find their way into a new role? And of course, there are companies that do this, but we want to disseminate this even wider.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, without giving away all of your session insights, can you share one surprising shift or trend that's changing how we work?
The trend that I see, and I think, Tammy, instinctively, you hinted at this in the introduction, is there are more flavors of mentorship than what most of us conceive of as the traditional mentoring relationship, which was someone seasoned and perhaps semi-advanced in years,
Mm,
taking a younger someone as a protege under their wing, shepherding and guiding them. I'm seeing an explosion of peer mentoring circles. These are very much like in the micro lending space globally, what are often referred to as trust circles, where you're bringing together a group of peers, but they have diverse talents and diverse roles. And they are given a bit of training, right, to just sort of on ramp them to their freeway, which is they're going to come together once or twice a month. They've got a few guardrails. Mainly, they're there to listen to one another. And when they hear dilemmas in a peer that is a similar dilemma to what you've conquered, then that's your opening to say, hey, I had something similar 2 years ago, and this was something that worked for me, or this was a book I read that gave me a lot of answers and new ideas on how to tackle this. So
mm,
peer mentoring is big, and also a term that we sometimes hear as reverse mentoring.
yes.
And of course, that simply means when you've got someone who's technically younger mentoring someone who is older in years. And what's the one that comes to mind, Tammy? The most obvious is on technology. Many of us have turned to a so-called digital native, daughter, son, niece, nephew, neighbor, right? To say, help me with fill in the blank with this piece of technology. So that's what I'll also be covering in my session around talent is, you know, mentorship has has many styles, many approaches, and they're all good. And here's the other good news. I am going to give this away. It's pretty much free.
Yeah.
All mentorship really is doing, you are mining for the diamonds that are already on the ground on which you're standing.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. So super powerful.
Yeah, and I think I'm a huge fan of the reverse mentorship in a variety of different ways, actually, that I've seen it be incredibly successful. And I mean, every leader, and if you say you don't have this, then your team's not diverse enough, right? But we have this generation clash, right? We've got 5 generations in the workplace, and none of them know how to relate to each other. And this, everybody's struggling with Gen Z today in terms of tenure. They're always, they're looking before they even start and before they even get onboarded. And, a lot of people struggle with and find frustration with being able to build and bridge that gap. But here's why that's important. Because newsflash, those Gen Zers are going to be your customers in less than 5 years if they're not already. And if you can't figure out how to relate to them and integrate into their way of working within your own organization, your opportunity to actually do that from a sales and revenue perspective is even less. And so if you need a reason to figure out how to figure this out and to come to the conference, then that alone from a revenue generation perspective is a massive impact. And so the companies that are saying, okay, new gen, you know, show us how things are done today. What actually works? Why does that work? And those types of things, the companies that can harness that in the most senior levels within the organization are the ones who will be thriving in 2030.
Yeah.
So, it's not just show me how to use the next technology, although I struggle with that. So, thankfully I have a Gen Zer. I made one myself. So, I've got one on auto dial. But from a business and from a profitability perspective, it is also incredibly important for longevity of the organization.
Yeah.
Um, and so they're going to be your buying influences and your customers, right? So we want to make sure that that we know how to relate to the up and coming gen. And so we know that this event is not about listening to everybody talk and then going away with a notebook full of great ideas that we never do anything with.
Mhm.
This is all about taking action, walking away with a framework that's ready for Monday, to share with your leadership team that's board ready. And so give us one teaser. Like, what's one thing that attendees are going to be able to take action on right after they come to Disrupted?
I'm going to provide a very simple blueprint of how to get career mentorship relationships started, activated, importantly, in a way that is sustainable. Many mentorship efforts are tried far and wide, and often they fail because there's not that little bit of science that goes in beforehand to make sure that these relationships will catch fire in a good way,
Yeah.
right? And therefore be sustainable. And it can be very simple. One of my operating principles is the power of simplicity. So that's something I have to offer as well. Plus, we're going to have fun. Our session is just going to take the roof off. It's going to be fun. It's going to be human. It's going to be interactive and engaging and all about you. Like Tammy said, this isn't talk, talk, talk. It's interact, share wisdom, model collaboration, and then go back and take the lid off at your own organization. That's
That's
what we
right.
want for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you've been in the rooms with some of the most innovative leaders around this all over the world. And so, what is the one mindset shift that people need to start to make as a result of getting this right?
Yeah. I'm going to say something that everyone's heard before, but I think it's worth bringing it up newly. Listen more than you talk. That would be the through line
Mm,
of great leaders that I've seen that get their people fully engaged
mhm.
and their people getting a lot done with competence.
Mm. All right, I love that. And so, just to give you guys a little bit more information about Disrupted Work Reimagined, we know that adults have the attention span of a 5-year-old. And so instead of pretending that doesn't exist, this event is really built to be, to Lori's point, fun, high energy, high connectivity. And so this is not a spectator sport. And to give you an idea of how this actually will play out, I want you to envision a 1 day experience that brings together the concept of think tank meets adult hackathon or business hackathon. And we also call it an adult playground because it's super fun to play with this, right? And so we are creating, and you are able to create shoulder to shoulder with industry experts that you normally wouldn't have access to. So this isn't stand in line for 5 minutes, talk to the experts, and then go back. This is, they are going to be looking into your business with you as you create Monday Ready playbooks for the pillar that you choose. And so if you are looking into your organization and you know that you've got disengaged employees, and we all know that everyone does because best case scenario, it's 30%. But you have lost all the faith in being able to reactivate them because you've tried everything, then this is the place for you to come. Because this is not about engagement, this is about activation. This isn't about accountability, it's about ownership and allowing your team members to really feel like they own their seat because when they do that, magic happens. So join us on October 16th at Disrupted the Future of Work in New York City. There'll be information in the notes here, and you can also DM Lori or I and ask for more information. But Lori, I am so excited for you and your two co-conspirators in this talent and culture pillar, who will be announced later. But thanks again for your time and sharing your wisdom and your thought leadership. I really appreciate it.
All right, everyone. See you there. Thank you, Tammy.
See you.